Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The wall exploded inward with a deafening roar. Superheated metal shrapnel tore through flesh and circuitry. Miles felt the concussive force slam him backward as his combat armor absorbed the worst of it. His ears rang. Blood misted the air. "Breach in Sector 7. They're boarding," someone screamed through static-filled comms. Miles rolled to his feet, weapon raised, instinctively firing 3 bursts toward the jagged hole, where shadows now moved with predatory intent. Around him, the transport vessel Wanderer died by inches. Emergency lights strobed crimson, gravity fluctuated, and the ship's spinal supports groaned like a wounded animal. "6th pod away. 7th group. Move out now," he barked, shoving terrified civilians toward the remaining escape pods. His battle-scarred armor bore fresh dents, servos whining in protest as he muscled through the crush of panicked bodies. Through swirling smoke at the far end of the compartment, a figure remained motionless, defiant amid chaos. Blue-skinned, slender, hunched over a terminal. Her lab jumpsuit was spattered with someone else's blood, azure fingers flying across the interface with cold precision. "What the hell are you doing?" Miles roared, lunging toward her as another explosion rocked the ship. "Evacuate!" Now, she didn't even look up. "This data cannot fall into their hands." Her voice was unnaturally calm, clinical, while death surrounded them. "The ship is breaking apart." He reached for her arm. The second explosion hit directly beside them. Reality fractured into a silent, white-hot moment of pain. Miles felt something slice through his side as the blast threw him and the scientist to the deck. His armor's integrity warnings flashed across his HUD. He tasted blood and burning plastic. When his vision cleared, he saw her, half-conscious, her leg impaled by a jagged fragment of metal. But this was no ordinary debris. The shard protruding from her thigh emitted a dull crimson glow from within. It vibrated with a high-pitched hum that bypassed his auditory nerves and drilled directly into his brainstem. The sound made his vision blur and his teeth ache. His threat assessment implant screamed warnings he'd never seen before. "Pod," he gasped, gathering her into his arms despite her strangled cry of pain. Blood slicked his gauntlets as he lifted her. Her skin felt unnaturally cold. The lab badge caught emergency lights. "Dr. Iona Vex, Xenobiology Division." "The drive," she wheezed, still clutching her data tablet with white-knuckled intensity. "The research." "Forget it," Miles grunted, staggering toward the final escape pod as structural alarms reached deafening pitch. The deck beneath them buckled. Support beams crashed down mere centimeters behind them. They tumbled into the last pod with seconds to spare. Miles slamming the emergency release as the Wanderer began its final, catastrophic decompression. Ejection was violent. Stabilizers failed immediately. Miles glimpsed the transport ship dissolve into expanding debris through the viewport, bodies and machinery tumbling into vacuum, before their pod was caught in the gravitational pull of an unnamed world below. Entry was hell. The pod's hull glowed white-hot. Navigation died. Life support fluctuated. Miles strapped the semi-conscious scientist into a crash harness, then braced for impact. They hit atmosphere at the wrong angle. The pod screamed. Then everything went black. Consciousness returned in fragments. The taste of copper, the smell of scorched electronics. Pain, bright and insistent. Miles pried his eyes open to find himself sprawled in the wreckage of the escape pod. Sunlight, alien, too green, streamed through a jagged rent in the hull. His armor was operational but damaged, power reserves at 47%. The woman lay motionless beside him, her lab jumpsuit now saturated with blood. The shard in her thigh pulsed with that same unnatural crimson glow. The humming had grown louder, more insistent. As he watched, the blue skin around the wound began developing a faint gray dust, like metal filings drawn to a magnet. "Dr. Vex," he said, activating his medical scanner. The readings made no sense. Power fluctuations, corrupted data, impossible biological markers. He leaned closer. "Dr. Vex, Iona. Can you hear me?" Her eyes snapped open, startlingly alert despite her condition. "Remove the shard and I'll kill you myself," she said, voice clear and cold. Miles blinked in surprise. You've got a foreign object embedded in your femoral region. You're losing blood. Not just any foreign object. She struggled to sit up, face contorting with pain, but determination undiminished. This is pirate technology. Evidence. A sample we desperately need. It looks like it's killing you, Miles countered, indicating the spreading gray discoloration. Analysis outweighs risk, she snapped, already trying to scan the shard with her miraculously intact tablet. If we understand how their hull technology functions, we could save entire systems. You, soldier, see only threats to eliminate. And you, scientist, see only data points until they kill you, he snarled back. My job is saving lives, starting with yours. He reached for the shard. She caught his wrist with surprising strength, her blue fingers digging into the gap between his armor plates. Your job is following orders, she hissed through clenched teeth. And I'm ordering you not to touch it. This is a scientific specimen. Their gazes locked over the glowing fragment, his filled with pragmatic fury, hers with cold scientific obstinance. Around them stretched an alien landscape of twisted vegetation and unnatural colors. Distant howls echoed through the canopy, but the true enemy lay between them, embedded in her flesh, humming its otherworldly frequency. Miles noticed how the gray dust had begun spreading outward from the wound in microscopic tendrils. Whatever this technology was, it was active, invasive. Look at your leg, he said, voice taut. That's not a normal wound reaction. She glanced down, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding pain. Fascinating. Some form of nanite deployment system. She ran a finger near, not touching, the gray dust. Atomically precise deconstruction. They're consuming you, Miles said flatly. All the more reason to study them, she countered, wincing as she shifted position. If pirates have weaponized nanite technology, the entire coalition is at risk. Miles exhaled sharply, surveying their situation through the shattered viewport. Tactical assessment, dire. No communications. Life support, dead. Medical supplies, minimal. The atmospheric composition registered as breathable on his HUD, but alien pathogens remained an unknown variable, and the scientist's wound was something unprecedented. We need to move, he decided, voice leaving no room for argument. Those mountains north might have water sources. And how exactly am I supposed to travel? Iona asked, gesturing to her impaled leg with cold sarcasm. Miles didn't waste words. He gathered their salvageable supplies, medkit, sidearm, ration packs, and secured them to his armor's utility harness. Then he approached her again. Don't touch the shard, she warned, fingers hovering protectively over the glowing fragment. I won't, he promised tersely, but we're not staying here to die. Before she could protest further, he scooped her into his arms. She was lighter than his tactical assessment had estimated, her frame delicate despite her razor-edged demeanor. The shard in her leg hummed louder, as if agitated by the movement. This is undignified, she muttered, but didn't resist. Dignity is a luxury, Miles replied, stepping through the twisted hatch into alien terrain. Survival isn't. The landscape assaulted their senses immediately. Massive vegetation structures with purple-veined canopies stretched toward a sickly green sky. The air hung thick with moisture and unknown compounds. Sweet, rotting, alive. Every surface glistened with dew-like droplets that Miles' scanner flagged as mildly biotoxic. Don't touch the plants, he instructed, carefully navigating between hanging vines and twisted roots. My suit's sampling toxins in the surface moisture. Iona didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on her tablet, recording everything despite her condition. Miles noted with growing concern that her breathing had shallowed and her normally vibrant blue skin had acquired a grayish tint where it wasn't stained with drying blood. The shard's humming became a constant neural irritant, a sound that seemed to bypass his auditory processing and scrape directly against his brain. Miles found himself grinding his teeth unconsciously, his thoughts becoming harder to organize. They traveled in tense silence for nearly an hour, the terrain gradually sloping upward. Miles' enhanced strength made carrying her possible, but not effortless. Sweat soaked his undersuit despite the armor's cooling systems. Stop, Iona suddenly whispered, her body tensing in his arms. Miles halted instantly, training taking over. What is it? Movement, 3 o'clock, she murmured, eyes fixed on something through the dense foliage. He followed her gaze but saw nothing. Then a shadow shifted, and his combat instincts screamed. Without hesitation, he set Iona down against a massive root and drew his sidearm. The creature that emerged was the size of a large dog, but there any resemblance to Earth fauna ended. It moved on 6 segmented limbs, its eyeless head dominated by a pulsing sensory organ. Translucent skin revealed internal organs working in hypnotic rhythm. "Don't move," Miles breathed, weapon trained on the creature. It paused, the sensory bulb turning in their direction. A series of clicks emanated from somewhere beneath its body. "It's hunting by sound," Iona whispered, barely audible, "and possibly bioelectrical signals." The creature took a step toward them, limbs unfolding with predatory grace. Miles steadied his aim, finger tightening on the trigger. "Wait," Iona hissed. "If you fire, the sound could attract others." "You have a better idea?" he whispered back. "Actually, yes." With deliberate slowness, she reached into her pocket and withdrew a small device, a portable lab scanner. These emit a specific electromagnetic frequency, if it hunts using bioelectrical sensing. She adjusted something on the device, then tossed it several meters away. The scanner landed with a soft thud, immediately beginning to pulse with a faint blue light. The creature's head swiveled instantly toward the device. It approached cautiously, then with increasing speed. In a blur of motion, it pounced on the scanner, enveloping it with its body. "Now," Iona urged, "while it's feeding." Miles didn't hesitate. He lifted her again and moved quickly away from the distracted predator, his steps careful and measured despite their speed. "Smart thinking," he admitted once they were safely distant. "A logical application of observed behavior," she replied, but he didn't miss the slight flush of pride that colored her cheeks momentarily. "The creature likely feeds on the electrical impulses of local fauna. My scanner emitted a similar signature, but stronger." "You sacrificed your equipment," Miles noted. "A basic scanner is replaceable. Our lives aren't." She winced as the movement jostled her leg. "Though I admit the loss of data collection capability is inconvenient." Miles almost smiled at her understatement. "I think that's the first practical decision you've made since we met. Don't get used to it, soldier." Despite her dismissive tone, something had shifted between them, a fragile thread of respect, born in the face of shared danger. The shard in her leg pulsed brighter, as if in protest. By nightfall, they'd reached the foothills of the mountain range. Miles's armor registered dangerously low power levels. His muscles screamed from carrying Iona for hours without enhancement systems. But it was her condition that truly alarmed him. The transformation had accelerated. Where the shard entered her thigh, her flesh had turned completely gray. Not just discolored, but transmuted into something that wasn't organic anymore. The skin around the wound had developed a lattice of microscopic fissures, like ceramic under stress. When she moved, Miles heard it, a soft, grating sound like metal filings shifting against each other. He found a shallow cave formation and carefully set her down. When her leg brushed against the stone floor, a tiny patch of her skin simply detached. It crumbled into a pile of metallic dust that caught the dying light. "You're falling apart," Miles said, unable to keep the horror from his voice. Iona examined the phenomenon with clinical detachment. She scraped a fingernail across the affected area. More skin flaked away, disintegrating into perfect microscopic cubes that briefly held their shape before collapsing into dust. The sound was unmistakable now, a dry, chittering whisper as thousands of nanomachines reconfigured her cellular structure. "Fascinating," she murmured. "They're not just consuming, they're converting." She pressed a finger into the gray area. It dented inward like putty, then slowly reformed. Organic matter into programmable matter. "Can you feel that?" Miles asked, watching a new fissure appear, spreading up her thigh like a lightning bolt in slow motion. "Yes and no." She tilted her head, analytical even about her own disintegration. "Sensation is different, less pain, more awareness of structural integrity." Miles removed his helmet, revealing a face weathered by combat, but younger than his voice suggested. He ran a hand through close-cropped black hair, trying not to stare at the wound. "You need water," he said, noticing her cracked lips. "So do you," she countered weakly. He left his sidearm with her and ventured into the alien twilight, returning with filled canteens. When he approached the cave, he found Iona examining a sample of herself, a small pile of gray dust on her tablet's surface that she prodded with a medical instrument. It retains molecular cohesion even separated from the primary mass, she was recording, her voice clinical despite everything. Programmable matter with distributed intelligence? Theoretical applications are... She stopped when she saw him, but didn't seem embarrassed. As she reached for the water, her arm produced that same unsettling sound, brittle and granular. Miles watched in horrified fascination as a network of hairline fractures raced across her forearm, her blue skin graying wherever the fissures spread. When she flexed her fingers, tiny motes of dust cascaded from the joints. "How far has it spread?" he asked quietly. In answer, she pulled aside her jumpsuit collar. The gray transformation had crept up her hip, across her abdomen, and was advancing toward her rib cage, much faster than external signs had indicated. Where it had progressed furthest, her body had a translucent quality, as if hollowed out and refilled with something that only approximated organic tissue. Estimated time until total systemic conversion? 36 hours, she reported with the same tone she might use to describe experiment results. Less if the process continues to accelerate. And then, unknown. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her features. Either my consciousness will persist within the transformed substrate, or it will be overwritten by the nanite programming. In human terms, either you live as something else, or you die and something else wears your body. She nodded once, sharply. Accurate assessment. Miles knelt beside her, studying the shard still embedded in her thigh. Its glow pulsed in rhythm now, synchronized with what might have been her heartbeat, if she still had a fully organic heart. "We need to remove it," he said again, with less conviction than before. "It's the source." "Too late," she replied simply. "The nanites are self-sustaining now. Removing the shard would only eliminate our chance to study the control mechanisms." As if to emphasize her point, a particularly large fissure opened along her transformed leg. Instead of blood, a silvery liquid welled up, catching the dim light. It rippled with unnatural animation before reabsorbing into the gray surface. The sound it made, like thousands of tiny whispers, raised the hair on Miles' neck. "Does it hurt?" he asked, suddenly needing to know. She considered this question more carefully than the scientific ones. "Not exactly. It's more existentially disturbing. I can feel myself being overwritten, reinterpreted." Her eyes met his, and for once he saw genuine fear behind the scientific facade. "I remain myself, but less so with each hour." Before Miles could respond, a distant howl echoed through the forest, followed by another closer. The alien predators were hunting. Miles stepped into view, deliberately making noise to announce his presence. "Water," he said, offering her a canteen. She quickly shut off the recording, accepting the water with a nod of thanks. Her hands trembled slightly as she drank. "You heard?" she asked after a moment. "Enough." He settled beside her, removing his armor plates to access the wound in his side. "You really think it'll kill you in days?" "Based on the progression rate, yes." She watched him struggle to reach the injury. "Let me help with that." Before he could protest, she'd moved closer, her cool fingers gentle on his skin as she examined the wound. "It's not deep, but it needs cleaning." She took the medkit from him and began to work, her touch precise despite her condition. Miles found himself studying her face, the angular features, the subtle patterns in her blue skin that he hadn't noticed before. "Why did you become a scientist?" he asked suddenly, needing to break the silence filled only by the shard's persistent hum. Iona's hands paused momentarily. "To understand," she said simply. "The universe is vast and filled with wonders and terrors. Knowledge is our only true defense. Some would say weapons are a more reliable defense. Weapons without knowledge are just destructive force. Knowledge without application is just theory." She finished bandaging his side. "We need both." Miles nodded slowly. "And why xenobiology specifically?" "Because I am one," she said with the ghost of a smile. "Half Novan on my mother's side. I grew up between worlds, neither fully human nor fully alien. Understanding the intricacies of different biological systems became personal. It explained her blue skin and her resilience. Novans were known for their intellectual capacity and physical durability. traits that were likely keeping her alive despite the nanites' assault. "And you?" she asked, settling back against the cave wall with a barely suppressed grimace. "Why security?" Miles looked out at the alien night, memories surfacing unwelcome. "I was good at it, protecting people. That's what you did, not why you did it." He met her gaze, surprised by her perception. "My colony was raided when I was 12. Pirates like the ones who attacked our ship. They took everything, everyone. I survived by hiding, by doing nothing." His jaw tightened. "I promised myself I'd never hide again." Iona absorbed this, her expression softening. "So now you throw yourself between others and danger." "Something like that." The shard pulsed, drawing their attention back to their immediate crisis. The gray dust had spread further up her thigh. "It's accelerating," she observed clinically, but Miles caught the fear she tried to mask. "We need to remove it," he insisted again. "No," she replied, but with less conviction than before. "Not until I understand how it works." "Understanding won't matter if you're dead," he argued, frustration rising. "It will if it saves others from the same fate." Her eyes flashed with sudden intensity. "My life for thousands? That's simple mathematics, soldier." Before Miles could respond, a distant howl echoed through the forest, followed by another, closer. The alien predators were hunting. "We need to move," Miles said, gathering their supplies. "If they hunt by bioelectrical signals, we're beacons in this cave." "I've been considering that," Iona replied, her scientific mind still racing despite her condition. "If they sense electrical impulses, your armor might be drawing them." Miles checked his power indicators, already dangerously low. "If I shut down all non-essential systems, we lose environmental regulation and strength enhancement. We'll be less visible to predators," she countered. "Besides, your armor's nearly depleted anyway." She was right. With reluctance, Miles initiated shutdown sequences, watching as system after system went dark. The cave grew colder immediately as his suit's heating ceased. He lifted her again, trying not to react to the sensation of her partially transformed body against him. Her once solid form now had sections that seemed to give way unnaturally, as if filled with something between liquid and solid. The sound, that dry, rasping whisper, intensified with movement. "East," she instructed, checking something on her tablet. "There's a geological formation that might provide better shelter." "How do you know that?" "Took satellite scans while you were getting water. The tablet's mapping capabilities are limited but functional." They ventured into the alien night. With each step, Miles felt something gritty against his armor where Iona's body made contact. Looking down, he saw trails of metallic dust sifting from her transformed regions, marking their path like macabre breadcrumbs. "You're shedding," he observed grimly. "Excess conversion material," she explained. "The nanites are becoming more efficient, discarding unnecessary mass." "Unnecessary mass, that used to be you." She didn't respond to that. The howls grew closer behind them. Miles increased his pace despite exhaustion. The shard's crimson glow now illuminated their path eerily, pulsing brighter with each of Iona's heartbeats. Its humming had deepened, resonating through both their bodies. An hour into their night journey, Iona gasped suddenly. Miles halted, thinking she'd spotted danger. Instead, she was staring at her hand in the shard's crimson light. Her fingers had begun to fuse together. The spaces between them had filled with the gray matter, webbing them into a crude paddle. As they watched, the material rippled, then extruded 5 distinct digit-like projections, approximations of her original fingers, but clearly mechanical in nature. "Motor control remains," she whispered, flexing the new appendages experimentally. They moved with uncanny precision, but the motion produced a sound like grinding metal. "Neural interfaces are being preserved and replicated." Miles felt nausea rise in his throat, but kept moving. "Can you still feel with them?" "Yes," she said, sounding almost awed. "Different sensory modality, more comprehensive. I don't just feel pressure or temperature. I sense composition, molecular structure." She touched her tablet screen. "Silicon, glass, rare earth elements. I can feel the electrical pathways inside." The transformation had reached her face now. A delicate tracery of gray lines had appeared at her jawline, spreading upward like metallic veins. One eye had developed a silvery film over the iris that caught the shard's light and reflected it back with unnatural brilliance. When she spoke, Miles heard a subtle harmonic underneath her voice, as if something else was speaking with her, through her. "They're in my brain now," she stated with clinical detachment that couldn't quite mask her terror. "I can feel them, mapping me, learning me." They traveled through the night, necessity overriding exhaustion. The predators remained behind them, tracking the microscopic trail of metallic dust that sifted from Iona's transforming body with every step. By dawn, the gray tide had consumed most of her. Her once blue skin remained only in isolated patches, islands of azure amid seas of metallic gray. Her structure had changed fundamentally. Limbs thinner but denser, joints reconfigured for mechanical efficiency rather than biological function. When she moved, the sound was unmistakable now, a symphony of microscopic grinding, clicking, and whispering as billions of nanites restructured her cellular matrix. "The mountains," Miles said, his voice hoarse from exertion. Through the trees, a rocky escarpment rose before them. Iona's head turned with mechanical precision, those silver-filmed eyes scanning the terrain. 2 kilometers, northwestern face, cave system. Her voice had developed a multi-tonal quality. Her original voice layered with something else, something that resonated at frequencies that made Miles's teeth ache. He didn't ask how she knew about the caves. The nanites were clearly accessing knowledge beyond what her tablet could provide. The alien dawn flared green-white, temporarily blinding them. When Miles' vision cleared, he saw their destination, a massive rock formation jutting from the forest floor. But something was wrong. Movement flickered at its base. "We're not alone," he warned, setting Iona down behind cover. "Pirates," she confirmed, her transformed senses detecting what his couldn't. 3 of them, tracking the shard's signal. Miles checked his weapon, nearly depleted. "They followed us from orbit." "They want the technology back," Iona said. Her partially transformed face could no longer express emotion properly, but her organic eye still showed fear. "The nanites are transmitting data. Everything they consume, they analyze and report. The implications hit Miles like a physical blow. They've been monitoring us this entire time." "Yes, and now they've come to collect." She looked down at her body, more machine than organic now. The shard pulsed in her thigh, synchronized with systems that were no longer strictly biological. "They want what I'm becoming." Miles assessed their situation with brutal honesty. His armor was dead, one sidearm with minimal charge. No communications. And Iona could barely move under her own power, her transformed body still learning how to coordinate its new configuration. "Can you walk at all?" he asked. She attempted to stand, movements jerky and uncoordinated. Her transformed leg dragged uselessly, foot now completely metallic, grinding against the soil with a sound like steel wool on stone. With each movement, tiny flakes of metallic dust drifted from the joints where transformation was still ongoing. "Not effectively," she admitted, the dual-tone voice creating unsettling harmonics. A plan formed in Miles' mind, desperate but possible. "We need to separate." "Illogical," she responded immediately, the mechanical undertone stronger. "Survival probability decreases by 64% if we divide our resources." "They're tracking you, the shard specifically," Miles explained. "I'll draw them away." "You continue to the caves." "You're suggesting using yourself as bait," Iona stated. For a moment, her original voice broke through the mechanical overlay, concern evident. "That's suicide, Miles." "No, it's tactics," he corrected. "Give me your tablet." Understanding dawned in her silver-filmed eyes. "The electromagnetic pulse. You're going to use it to mimic the shard signature." "Exactly." He took the device from her transformed hand, careful not to touch the gray surface directly. "I'll lead them away. You get to the caves. And if they catch you?" Miles smiled grimly. "Then I make sure they don't walk away from it." As they finalized their plan, a flake of transformed tissue detached from Iona's cheek. It didn't crumble to dust this time, but hung suspended for a moment. A perfect metallic hexagon that caught the alien light. Then it disintegrated into microscopic particles that scattered on the breeze like technological pollen. She touched her face, feeling the small divot where her cheek had simply departed. "The process is accelerating exponentially," she observed clinically. "Total conversion within hours now. All the more reason to move quickly." Miles helped her to a sheltered position, constructing a crude support from branches to help her advance toward the caves once he'd drawn off the pirates. Before leaving, he studied her transformed form one last time. Despite everything, the metal, the mechanical movements, the silver-filmed eyes, he could still see her there. The brilliant scientist who refused to give up, even as her body was rewritten, cell by cell. "Stay alive," and he said simply. The mechanical face couldn't smile, but her remaining organic eyes softened. "That directive applies to you as well, soldier." The pirates moved with practiced efficiency, sweeping the terrain with handheld trackers. Miles watched from cover as they converged on the tablet he'd modified to emit the shard's frequency. The moment they discovered the deception, he'd have seconds at most. 3 armored figures, mismatched equipment, salvaged from countless raids. The leader wore a helmet adorned with trophies, coalition insignia torn from fallen soldiers. Miles' jaw tightened. "Signals fluctuating," one pirate called out, voice distorted through their helmet's filter. "Could be interference from the local magnetic field." "Or a trap," the leader replied. "Stay alert." Miles waited until they were fully committed to the false trail before moving. The plan was simple. Lead them away from Iona, then circle back. If he was lucky, they'd waste hours pursuing ghosts in the forest. He made his first deliberate noise, a snapped branch, then darted between trees as pirate sensors swiveled toward the sound. Their pursuit was immediate, as expected. What he hadn't anticipated was their speed. Enhanced armor, he realized. Military grade, stolen from coalition forces. The chase intensified. Miles relied on training and terrain knowledge. But the pirates had technology on their side. Energy bolts sizzled past him, scorching vegetation. His lungs burned. Without his armor's enhancement, he was just a man. Fast, skilled, but human. A bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Pain exploded through his nervous system. He rolled behind a massive root as return fire ripped through the foliage. "Just surrender the specimen," the leader called out. "We only want the shard and its host." Miles' mind raced. They didn't know Iona's transformation had progressed beyond dependence on the original fragment. They thought they needed both. "The woman's dead," he shouted back. "Conversion killed her hours ago." A pause in the firing. The pirates conferred in hushed tones. "Then we'll take her remains," the leader decided. "And you?" Miles checked his weapon. 2 shots remaining. Not enough. He closed his eyes, focusing past the pain, considering options that all ended badly. Screaming faces flashed through his mind. His colony burning. Pirates dragging away survivors. Himself, 12 years old, frozen in a storage compartment, watching through the grate as his family was taken. His own hands trembling, unable to move. The shame that had defined his life since. His eyes snapped open. Not this time. He broke cover suddenly, firing his remaining shots not at the pirates, but at the massive, bulbous growth hanging above them. The alien plant ruptured, releasing a cloud of spores that engulfed the armored figures. Their suits' filtration systems engaged automatically, but the sticky substance clogged external sensors. Miles didn't wait to see more. He sprinted toward the mountains where Iona waited, a new plan forming. The pirates would follow, angrier, more determined, but temporarily blind. He found her where he'd left her, though her was becoming an increasingly abstract concept. The transformation had accelerated catastrophically. Her remaining organic components were now islands in a sea of metallic reconstruction. Her face retained only vague humanoid features, with apertures instead of eyes, and a speaker-like opening where her mouth had been. "They're coming," he gasped, clutching his wounded shoulder. 3 of them, military-grade armor. Iona's head rotated with mechanical precision. "Your injury requires attention." "Later," he dismissed. "Can you move at all now?" The metallic figure jerked upright in a series of segmented motions, as if testing newly installed components. Gross motor control established. Fine coordination still developing. Her voice emerged as a synthesized approximation of her original tones. Movement speed, suboptimal, but functional. Good enough. "We need to reach the caves." Miles supported her with his good arm as they began their awkward journey toward the mountain face. Each step produced that unsettling grinding sound as her partially formed mechanisms adjusted to locomotion. Your diversionary tactic was successful, she asked, each word precisely modulated. Temporarily. Miles grimaced as pain shot through his shoulder. They want you, or what's left of you. They think the shard is key to the technology. A logical but incorrect assumption, Iona observed. The shard is merely a delivery system. The nanites now operate autonomously within my structure. They reached the cave entrance just as shouts echoed behind them. The pirates had recovered faster than expected. Inside, Miles urged, guiding her into the narrow opening. The cave system was more extensive than it had appeared from outside. A network of tunnels bored through ancient stone. Iona stopped suddenly, her metallic body going rigid. I sensed something. The pirates? No, different. Her head tilted, apertures adjusting like camera lenses. Energy signatures deeper in the system. Similar resonance pattern to the shard. Miles stared at her. You're saying there's more of this technology here? That's impossible. Statistically unlikely, but evidently factual, she corrected. The nanites are responding to it. Directional indicators suggest. She pointed a partially formed metallic hand toward the deepest tunnel. There. Energy bolts impacted near the cave entrance. The pirates had found them. No choice now, Miles decided. We go deeper. As they ventured into the tunnel, Iona's transformed body began to emit a subtle glow. The same crimson as the shard, but pulsing throughout her entire form. It provided just enough light to navigate the increasingly narrow passage. The nanite conversion is approaching completion, she observed. Estimated organic component remaining, 8.3%. Does it hurt? Miles asked, the question escaping before he could stop it. Iona's mechanical approximation of a head turned toward him. Pain is a biological warning system. It becomes irrelevant as biology is transcended. After a pause, she added, but yes, the remaining organic components experience significant distress. The cave narrowed further, forcing them to proceed single file. Miles went first, testing the ground ahead. The pirates' voices echoed behind them, growing closer. What happens when the conversion is complete? He asked, needing to focus on something besides their pursuit. Unknown, Iona admitted. Existing data suggests two possibilities. Either my consciousness persists within the new substrate, or it is overwritten by the nanite programming. And you're okay with that risk? Science advances through risk, she replied, the mechanical voice somehow conveying her essential nature despite its synthetic quality. Besides, the alternative was certain death. This is at least interesting. Miles almost laughed despite everything. Even transformed into a mechanical entity, she remained fundamentally herself, curious, analytical, and stubbornly committed to knowledge at any cost. The tunnel suddenly opened into a vast chamber that stole Miles' breath. Iona's crimson glow revealed a space that couldn't possibly exist naturally. A perfect hemisphere carved from solid rock, its walls inscribed with patterns too regular to be geological. And at its center, suspended in a column of light, hovered an object identical to the shard embedded in Iona's leg, but intact, undamaged, and pulsing with the same crimson energy. The pirate ship was small but lethal, a strike vessel designed for rapid deployment of boarding parties. Through a crack in the rock formation, Miles watched it land in a clearing less than a kilometer away. 3 of them, he reported, counting the figures that emerged from the ship. Heavy weapons, combat armor. They want the shard back, Iona said, propped against the wall. The brief respite from the EMP was already fading. The gray dust had regained its metallic sheen. Or rather, the data it's collected. Miles assessed their situation with brutal honesty. His armor was dead, one sidearm with limited ammunition. No communications, and Iona could barely move. We need to run, he decided, already gathering their meager supplies. I'll slow you down, she pointed out. Logically, you should. Don't, he cut her off. We're not separating. It's the rational choice. I don't care. He knelt beside her. Can you walk at all? She attempted to stand, leaning heavily against the stone wall. Her transformed leg dragged uselessly, the foot now completely crystallized. Not effectively, she admitted. Miles nodded, having expected as much. Then I'll carry you again. Your armor's dead. You won't have the strength enhancement. I managed last night, didn't I? She studied him, her scientific gaze assessing. You're operating on stimulants from your med kit, aren't you? He didn't deny it. We do what we have to. Outside, the pirates had begun sweeping the area, handheld trackers guiding their search. They'd find the shelter soon enough. Wait, Iona said suddenly. I have an idea. She pulled up schematics on her tablet, fingers moving with urgent purpose despite their trembling. The nanites communicate on a specific frequency. If I can isolate it and amplify a false signal, we could lead them away from us, Miles finished, understanding immediately. Exactly. But I'll need components from your armor. The communication array specifically. Miles didn't hesitate, prying open the relevant panel on his discarded suit. Iona directed him, identifying the pieces she needed. Together they cobbled together a crude transmitter, powered by the armor's auxiliary battery. It won't last long, she warned, making final adjustments, but it should create enough confusion to give us a head start. Where do we send them? Iona checked her tablet's map. There's a ravine 2 kilometers west, densely vegetated, multiple heat signatures, probably those predators. Miles smiled grimly. Let them hunt each other for a change. She activated the device, and the shard in her leg reacted immediately, its humming changing pitch. Outside, they heard the pirates' tracking devices emit a series of alert tones. It's working, Iona whispered. They're recalibrating. Miles watched through their observation crack as the pirates conferred, then changed direction, heading west toward the ravine. We go east, he decided. Now, while they're distracted. He lifted Iona again, her body frighteningly light in his arms. The stimulants in his system masked the fatigue, but he knew they were operating on borrowed time, both of them. They slipped from the shelter, staying low and using the dense vegetation for cover. Progress was agonizingly slow. Every few minutes, Miles had to stop and listen, ensuring the pirates hadn't doubled back. The alien sun beat down on them with merciless intensity. Without his armor's environmental controls, Miles felt sweat pouring down his face, stinging his eyes. Iona's condition continued to deteriorate. The gray dust had spread to her torso now, creeping up like a tide of metallic death. Tell me about Nova, Miles said as they paused in the shadow of a massive fern-like growth. He needed to keep her conscious, engaged. What? She asked weakly, her eyes struggling to focus. Your mother's homeworld. Tell me about it. She seemed to rally slightly. Cold, beautiful. The cities are built inside crystal mountains that refract the light of 3 moons. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. The university where I studied has lecture halls carved from single crystals. When the professors speak, the entire room resonates. Sounds incredible. It is. The Novan approach to science is different. They believe knowledge has consciousness, that discoveries aren't made but revealed when the researcher becomes worthy. She laughed softly. Very unscientific, but there's something poetic about it. Would you go back? After this, her expression darkened. There won't be an after this for me. Don't say that, Miles growled. We'll find a way. The scientist in me appreciates your optimism, but recognizes its irrationality. She winced as the shard pulsed brighter. The nanites have reached my major organs. Even if we remove the shard now, the process is irreversible. Miles refused to accept her assessment. There's always a solution. The soldier who never retreats, she observed, studying his face. What's your real name? Not just your rank and designation. Miles, he answered. Miles Cade. Miles, she repeated, as if testing the sound of it. I'm Iona Vex. A branch snapped nearby. Miles froze, instantly alert. Through the foliage he glimpsed movement. One of the pirates separated from the others. They've split up, he whispered, carefully setting Iona down behind the massive fern root. Stay hidden. Before she could protest, he moved away, circling to approach the pirate from behind. Without his armor, stealth was easier, and years of combat experience guided his movements. The pirate was tall and wiry, encased in dark armor adorned with salvaged components, a scavenger's patchwork of technology. The helmet turned constantly, scanning for signals. Miles drew his knife, calculating distances and angles. One chance, one strike. He lunged from concealment, driving the blade up beneath the helmet's edge where the seal met the armor. The pirate convulsed, a choked cry escaping before collapsing. Miles dragged the body into the undergrowth, quickly stripping it of useful equipment. The tracker, a compact energy weapon, and most valuably, a communications device. He returned to Iona, who had managed to prop herself against the root. Her breathing labored. "Got what we need," he said, showing her the pirate's equipment. She barely seemed to register his return, her eyes unfocused. "Miles, I'm here." He knelt beside her, alarmed at how quickly she deteriorated in the few minutes he'd been gone. The gray dust now covered most of her torso and had begun spreading down her arms. "The others will know," she managed. "When he doesn't report in, then we need to move faster." He gathered her up again, ignoring the burning protest of his muscles. "We just need to reach higher ground. Use their comm to signal for help." "No time," she whispered. "Miles, you need to take the data." "We're taking it together," he insisted, forcing his legs to carry them forward. "Listen," she said with sudden clarity, her hand gripping his arm with surprising strength. "The nanites, they're not just weapons. They're adaptive technology. They're changing me." Miles looked down at her leg, now completely transformed into a crystalline metallic structure. "Into what?" "I don't know, but the data, it's crucial. The Coalition needs to understand this technology before the pirates can perfect it." A distant shout echoed through the forest. The remaining pirates had discovered their missing comrade. "They're coming," Miles said grimly. Iona's expression hardened with resolve. "Then we make our stand here." Miles fortified their position as best he could, using the massive roots and dense vegetation to create a defensible perimeter. The pirates' energy weapon gave them a fighting chance, but against two opponents with superior armor, the odds remained grim. Iona had propped herself against the central root, the shard in her leg glowing brighter than ever. The gray transformation had reached her neck now, her once blue skin taking on the appearance of living metal. "If they get close enough," she said, her voice stronger, but with an odd metallic resonance, "I can use the shard against them." Miles looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "The nanites respond to electrical impulses. With the right stimulus." She held up her tablet, which displayed a complex waveform. "I can trigger a localized surge." "You'd be triggering it inside your own body," Miles protested. "The backlash could kill you instantly." "I'm already dying," she replied with eerie calm. "At least this way, my death has purpose." Before Miles could argue further, the tracker he'd taken from the pirate began to pulse rapidly. They were closing in. "2 signals," he confirmed, checking the device. "Coming from different directions. They're trying to flank us." Iona nodded, making final adjustments to her tablet. "Let them come." Miles positioned himself at the edge of their makeshift fortress, the energy weapon ready. "When this is over," he said without looking back, "I'm getting you to a medical facility." "Miles," she said softly, "thank you for not leaving me behind." He turned to her then, struck by the transformation that had overtaken her. The gray material had reached her jawline, giving her the appearance of a living statue. Only her eyes remained unchanged, brilliant and alert. "No one gets left behind," he said simply. The first pirate attacked from the west, energy bolts tearing through the vegetation. Miles returned fire, forcing the attacker to take cover. The second pirate used the distraction to approach from the south, more cautious but steadily advancing. "They're trying to wear us down," Miles called to Iona, "conserving their energy while depleting our weapon." 28% charge remaining, Iona confirmed, monitoring the weapon status on her tablet. "We won't last long in a prolonged engagement." Miles ducked as another volley sizzled overhead. "Then we don't let it get prolonged." He broke cover suddenly, firing 3 precise shots that forced the western pirate to retreat. The momentary advantage allowed him to reposition, circling behind a massive root to get a better angle on the southern attacker. The pirate hadn't expected the aggressive maneuver. Miles caught a glimpse of the figure, bulkier than the first, armor decorated with trophies of previous kills. The sight only hardened his resolve. He fired again, catching the pirate in the shoulder. The impact staggered but didn't drop the attacker, who returned fire with alarming accuracy. Miles felt the heat of an energy bolt sear past his face, close enough to blister skin. "Miles!" Iona's voice carried a warning. He spun to see the first pirate flanking their position, almost within striking distance of Iona. Without hesitation, Miles charged, abandoning cover to intercept the threat. The pirate turned, weapon leveled, but not fast enough. Miles crashed into the armored figure, driving them both to the ground. They grappled frantically, the pirate's superior armor giving them an advantage. Miles countered with desperate ferocity. He managed to jam his knife into a joint in the armor, eliciting a howl of pain. The pirate retaliated with an armored fist to Miles' ribs, cracking at least two. Pain exploded through his torso, but adrenaline kept him fighting. The second pirate approached, weapon trained on the struggling pair. "Hold still," a mechanically filtered voice commanded. "I'll finish the soldier." Miles knew he was seconds from death. He locked eyes with Iona across the clearing, saw her raise her tablet with grim determination. "Now," he shouted. Iona pressed the command sequence. The shard in her leg erupted with blinding crimson light. The humming sound crescendoed to a scream that drilled into their skulls. Both pirates staggered, their armor systems suddenly fluctuating wildly. What's happening?" The nearest one gasped, helmet displays flickering chaotically. "Electromagnetic overload," Iona explained, her voice now fully metallic. "Your armor's nanite components are receiving conflicting instructions." The shard pulsed again, and the gray dust on Iona's body seemed to ripple in response. The pirate's armor began to malfunction more severely, servo motors locking, weapons powering down, life support faltering. Miles seized the opportunity, breaking free from his opponent's weakened grasp. He snatched up the fallen energy weapon and fired point-blank into the pirate's faceplate. The reinforced material held, but the force knocked the attacker unconscious. The second pirate tried to retreat, armor movements jerky and uncoordinated. Miles didn't give them the chance. 3 precise shots brought the figure down, armor systems completely overloaded. In the sudden silence that followed, Miles became aware of a new sound. Iona's breathing, ragged and mechanical. He rushed to her side, horrified by what he saw. The transformation had accelerated catastrophically. The gray material now covered her entirely, her form barely recognizable as human or Novan. Her eyes, the last part to change, were clouding over with metallic film. "Iona!" he cried, dropping to his knees beside her. "The tablet," she managed, her voice distorted beyond recognition. "Take it. Complete the mission." "I'm not leaving you," Miles insisted, searching desperately for some way to help her. "Not leaving," she rasped, "changing. The nanites aren't just destroying, they're converting." Miles stared in disbelief as her form continued to shift, the humanoid shape dissolving into something more abstract, a swirling mass of metallic dust that somehow retained consciousness. "What's happening to you?" he whispered. "Becoming information," came her reply, the words seeming to emanate from the swirling mass rather than from any recognizable mouth. Miles, listen carefully. The pirates, they didn't create this technology. They found it. Ancient, powerful. How do you know this? I can access the nanite network now. See its purpose. The swirling intensified. Not a weapon, a preservation system designed to save consciousness when bodies fail. Miles struggled to comprehend. You're saying these nanites were created to transfer consciousness? To save people? Yes, but pirates corrupted the programming, weaponized it. The mass that had been Iona pulsed with each word. I can restore original function, but need help. Anything, Miles promised. Just tell me what to do. Need connection to their ship, central processor. The swirling dust extended a tendril toward the fallen pirates. Use their armor to access. Miles nodded, moving quickly to the unconscious pirates. He stripped components from their armor, interface modules, power cells, communication arrays. Following Iona's increasingly fragmented instructions, he assembled a makeshift transmitter. Will this work? He asked, connecting the final component. Unknown, but only chance. The cloud that was Iona had begun to contract, condensing into a more defined shape. Miles, if this fails, take the data, complete mission. It won't fail, he insisted. And when this is over, we'll find a way to restore you. The metallic mass vibrated with what might have been laughter. Always the optimist. Miles activated the transmitter. Immediately, the shard, still embedded in what remained of Iona's leg, began to pulse with renewed intensity. The cloud of nanites surrounding it rippled with energy patterns too complex for Miles to comprehend. The pirate ship visible in the distance, suddenly powered up, its external lights flickering in the same rhythm as the shard. It's working, Miles realized. You're accessing their systems? Yes, Iona's voice came stronger now, more coherent. The nanites are reconnecting to their origin protocol, overriding the pirate programming. The ship's engines fired, lifting it several meters off the ground before settling again. The display suggested Iona was testing her control. Can you call for help? Miles asked. Send a distress signal? Better, the cloud replied, continuing to condense into a more humanoid shape. Can fly. The ship. Get us to safety. Miles stared at the metallic figure taking form before him. Vaguely feminine, but clearly not human or Novan anymore. A being of living metal, with the consciousness of Iona Vex somehow preserved within. Us? He echoed. Won't leave you behind, Iona replied, using his own words. No one gets left behind. The unconscious pirates began to stir. Miles quickly subdued them again, using restraints from their own equipment to secure them. We should go, he urged, before they call for backup. They can't, Iona said, her form now stable enough to stand, though still clearly alien. A silhouette of swirling metallic particles held together by forces Miles couldn't understand. I've disabled all their communications. Only I can access the systems now. She extended what approximated a hand, metallic dust flowing and reforming continually. Come. Our mission isn't complete yet. Miles hesitated only briefly before taking her hand. It felt solid yet fluid, cool but not cold, a sensation unlike anything he'd ever experienced. What happens now, he asked as they made their way toward the pirate vessel, leaving the secured pirates behind. We deliver the data, Iona replied, her voice becoming more natural as she adjusted to her new form. Then we find a way to reverse what the pirates did to this technology. Return it to its original purpose. And you? Can you be restored? The metallic figure paused, particles swirling in what Miles interpreted as contemplation. Unknown. This transformation may be irreversible, but my consciousness remains intact. Perhaps that's enough. Miles wasn't satisfied with that answer, but he recognized the familiar stubborn tone beneath the metallic resonance. Some essential part of Iona had survived, regardless of her physical form. They reached the ship, its hatch opening automatically as they approached. Inside, the controls responded to Iona's presence, lighting up without being touched. The nanites connect directly to the ship's systems, she explained, her form flowing around the control room. The pirates were using a crude interface. I can access everything directly. Can you fly it? The knowledge is in the system. I'm absorbing it now. Her metallic body pulsed with new information. Yes, I can navigate us to the nearest coalition outpost. Miles secured himself in one of the crew seats as the engines powered up. What about the pirates we left behind? I've sent their coordinates in a separate transmission. A coalition patrol will pick them up. She paused, her form contracting slightly. They'll face justice for what they've done. The ship lifted smoothly from the planet's surface, accelerating into the atmosphere. Through the viewport, Miles watched the alien landscape recede. The dense forests, the mountain ranges, the crash site of their escape pod growing smaller until it disappeared entirely. We made it, he murmured, the realization only now fully hitting him. Yes, Iona agreed, her form settling into the co-pilot's seat beside him, though she clearly didn't need it. But our work is just beginning. Finding a cure for you? Finding the truth about this technology, she corrected. The nanites contain data far beyond what the pirates understood. This is ancient technology, Miles, possibly predating all known civilizations. Miles studied her metallic form, still unsettled by the transformation, but increasingly accepting of it. Does it hurt? Being like this? The swirling particles that composed her body shifted in what might have been a shrug. It's different. Physical sensation is more abstract, but I'm still me, Miles. Just more. More? I can process information faster, see patterns I couldn't before. She extended a tendril of metallic dust toward the ship's console, interfacing directly with it. The nanites were designed to preserve consciousness when biological bodies failed. A kind of digital immortality. Sounds like something people would kill for, Miles observed grimly. They already have, Iona agreed. The pirates discovered this technology and corrupted it, turning preservation into destruction. But now that I understand it from the inside, her form brightened with what Miles interpreted as excitement. The possibilities are endless. Miles wasn't entirely comfortable with that enthusiasm. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Don't lose yourself in there. Don't forget who you are. The metallic figure stilled, particles freezing momentarily in place. Then slowly they rearranged, taking on a more distinctly humanoid shape, a closer approximation of Iona's original form. I won't, she promised, her voice sounding more like herself. And Miles? Thank you for not giving up on me. He smiled tiredly, the adrenaline finally wearing off, leaving him acutely aware of his injuries and exhaustion. That's what partners do. Partners, she repeated as if testing the word. Yes, I like that. The ship accelerated to light speed, carrying them toward Coalition space, and whatever future awaited a security officer and a scientist who was no longer entirely biological. Neither of them could know what challenges that future held. But as Miles drifted into much-needed sleep, he found comfort in knowing they would face those challenges together. Human and not quite human, soldier and scientist. Different perspectives united by a shared purpose. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the pirates' masters were about to discover that their weapon had become something else entirely. A new form of life with the knowledge to undo their plans. The shard, still embedded in what remained of Iona's original form, pulsed one final time before going dark. Its purpose complete, its energy transferred into the cloud of conscious nanites that had once been Dr. Iona Vex. The transformation was complete, and the real journey was just beginning. 3 months later, Miles stood at the viewport of Coalition Science Vessel Inquiry, watching stars streak by as they traveled to the next research site. His uniform was new, his rank elevated after the successful delivery of the pirate technology and the subsequent missions to track down its source. Behind him, Iona interfaced with the ship's systems, her metallic form now refined and elegant, a silver silhouette that approximated her original appearance but remained unmistakably alien. She had gained precise control over the nanites that comprised her new body, able to shift and flow with liquid grace. New coordinates received, she announced, her voice now almost indistinguishable from her original one. We're being redirected to the Cygnus sector. Another possible cache of ancient technology detected. Miles nodded, turning from the viewport. Are you ready for this? It could be dangerous. The metallic figure that was Iona seemed to smile, though she had no actual face. Dangerous is where we do our best work, isn't it? He couldn't argue with that. In the months since their crash landing, they had become the Coalition's foremost experts on the ancient nanite technology. Iona with her direct connection to it, Miles with his practical experience and tactical mind. Together they had recovered 3 more caches, each revealing new aspects of the long-vanished civilization that had created the preservation system. Any progress on the reversal process? He asked, the question he always asked. Iona's form dimmed slightly, her equivalent of a sigh. Some. Dr. Revan's team believes they've isolated the conversion trigger, but a complete reversal remains theoretical. Miles approached her, close enough that he could feel the faint electrical field that surrounded her nanite body. Do you still want to reverse it? Be honest. The metallic particles swirled contemplatively. Some days yes, some days no. This existence is extraordinary, Miles. I can interface directly with technology, process data at incredible speeds, even survive in environments that would kill biological beings instantly. But, he prompted, knowing there was more. But I miss simple things. Taste, true touch. The feeling of exhaustion after a long day's work. Her form contracted slightly. Being human, or half-human in my case, Miles understood. Despite all her new capabilities, there were fundamental experiences now denied to her. The mission had cost her more than either of them had anticipated. We'll keep looking, he promised. If there's a way to give you the choice, to switch between forms, we'll find it. Always the optimist, she said warmly. An alert chime from the console. Incoming transmission from command, Iona reported, interfacing directly with the communication system. Priority 1. Miles straightened, instantly alert. Priority 1 meant trouble. The holographic display activated, showing Admiral Kressler, their direct superior and one of the few coalition officials cleared to know the full truth about Iona's transformation. "Commander Cade, Dr. Vex," the Admiral acknowledged. "We have a situation. Pirates have attacked Research Outpost Delta. They've stolen experimental weaponry based on the nanite technology you recovered." Miles felt his stomach drop. "Casualties? Significant. That's not the worst of it." Kressler's expression darkened. "Intelligence suggests they found a way to weaponize the conversion process on a large scale. A deployment device that could transform entire populations." Iona's metallic form rippled with alarm. "That shouldn't be possible. The nanite programming I provided to the research team had all weaponization protocols removed." "Someone found a workaround," Kressler replied grimly. "We need you to track them down and stop them before they can deploy this weapon. You two are the only ones who truly understand this technology." "Understood, Admiral," Miles said. "We're on it." The transmission ended, leaving them in tense silence. "This is my fault," Iona said eventually, her form dimming to a dull silver. "I thought I had eliminated all destructive applications from the data I provided." "You couldn't have known they'd find another approach," Miles countered. "Besides, this is exactly why we're out here, to prevent this technology from being misused. And if we fail? If they deploy this weapon before we can stop them?" Miles had no easy answer for that. The implications were horrifying. Entire colonies transformed against their will, converted into something neither living nor dead, but suspended in between. "Then we deal with it," he said finally. "Together." Iona's form brightened slightly. "Together," she agreed. As the inquiry changed course, accelerating toward the coordinates Admiral Kressler had provided, Miles couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come since that first desperate day on an unnamed planet. From adversaries arguing over a glowing shard to partners facing an uncertain future, their journey had transformed them both. Iona physically, Miles in less visible but equally profound ways. Whatever awaited them, whatever dangers they would face, one thing remained constant. They would face them side by side, the soldier who never retreated and the scientist who became something more than human. Different perspectives united in purpose. The nanite weapon that had been meant to destroy had instead created something new. A partnership that might just save countless lives if they could stop the pirates from unleashing their perverted version of the ancient technology. Miles checked his weapon, a modified energy pistol designed to disrupt nanite structures, and nodded to Iona. "Let's finish what we started." Her metallic form flowed into battle configuration, the nanites redistributing for optimal function. I was just about to suggest the same thing. Together they prepared to confront the pirates who had unwittingly brought them together, and who now threatened everything they had sworn to protect. The hunt was on, and this time they were the predators.